Draw My Life, Renaissance Edition. Featuring
Masaccio.
Brunelleschi.
And Ghiberti.
Masaccio. It sounds like mustachio.
Or pistachio.
But he wasn't a nut. He was clumsy, though.
Clumsy Wumsy.
People called him Clumsy Tom.
Or Hulking Tom.
But he wasn't green either. He was Italian.
He was born in San Giovanni Valdarno, just outside of Florence in 1401.
Hey guys, I've been there.
Taryn.
Yeah.
Florence was where he did most of his painting work. That's a paintbrush, not a pitchfork. And that's a very ugly Italy and a very ugly baby.
Everything's just ugly.
Yeah. And red didn't really exist back then.
I think it did, guys.
Shh, it didn't fit on the little painting thing, okay?
On January 7th, 1422, he enrolled in the Painters Guild, the Gilda del Pittore.
Oh yeah, because, guilds were kind of a thing back then. No big deal. But it wasn't until 1424 when he joined the Compagnia di San Luca.
Guys, I think that means company.
Taryn, we know. It was a professional organization in Florence. And Corey's beautiful drawing.
I'm pretty talented.
Okay, yeah. Anyways,
The first known work made by Masaccio
because, record keeping wasn't all that great.
was the San Giovanni triptych.
It depicts Mary and Jesus and a couple of saints. It is dated to April 23rd, which is also
Fun fact, Shakespeare's birthday.
Pace Kids, making connections.
Masaccio's most famous work,
Fame.
Fame!
I'm gonna live forever.
Anyways, his most famous work was the Holy Trinity at the Church of Santa Maria Novella.
It is unknown for sure, but there's strong evidence that it was commissioned by a member of the Lenzi family.
I found their Christmas card.
Oh, look at little Tommy and Susie.
They grow up so fast.
It was that guy who wanted the artwork.
Okay, so the Holy Trinity depicts Jesus on the cross and the Holy Spirit. The husband and wife are shown on the left and the right, and closest to Jesus are Mary and St. John.
And the inscription on the tombstone you can't really see, has a bunch of random words in Italian, but, But anyway, what it really means is, I once was what now you are, and what I am, you shall yet be.
Deep.
Sounds like something you'd hear on an Instagram selfie. At Instagirl.
Hashtag no makeup.
Hashtag no filter.
Hashtag selfie.
Hashtag like it up.
The vaulted ceiling shows perspective, which was invented by Brunelleschi.
No, guys, not yet.
Did we ask for your input? No. So hush.
Another one of his famous works is a series of frescoes in the Brancacci Chapel.
Oh.
Oh, no.
Nudity.
No!
Surprise Patrick, here to save the day.
He was commissioned to paint it with another man named Masolino.
Don't you just love how all the names end in O?
No, not really. Anyways, there's the big commission guy.
His chest hair.
Oh yeah, look at that chest hair. Paint for me, please.
But Masolino left to go to Hungary to paint for the king.
On his whale plane.
So, Masaccio got the job.
He worked, and he worked, and he worked.
And he twerked.
Twerked?
I don't know, maybe he did. We don't really know.
But then Masaccio got called to Rome from Florence, and he never got to finish. Why? Well, he kind of died.
So, how did he die, you might ask? Well, there is a lot of mystery behind his death.
Maybe a suspicious purple liquid.
Oh.
But, according to legend, a rival painter poisoned him.
Dun dun dun! Basically, Masaccio was Regina, and Caddy gave her Caltine bars.
Mean Girls reference.
Oh yeah. Awkward sunlight change. So, recap.
Some of his most famous works included the Holy Trinity and the frescoes he did at the Brancacci Chapel.
He was also the founder of 15th century Italian painting
And he created a new style.
with volumetric and muscular figures.
and linear perspective and directional light.
So here's a recap of his paintings.
Here's the Holy Trinity, the San Giovanelli triptych, and this is one of the frescoes from the Brancacci Chapel. This is the tribute money. So in a nutshell,
No, in a pistachio shell.
he was
Awesome. And Corey got new markers.
had to take advantage.
You know how we do. Alright, so next up is Brunelleschi.
Brunelleschi. Oh, I went skiing last year.
Good for you, Taryn. Anyway, Brunelleschi was born in Florence in 1377, and he was the middle of 3 children, and he also trained as a goldsmith.
Middle of 3 children. Hey, that's just like Julia.
Why is she in our group?
I don't know.
In 1401, he competed in a competition to make doors for the baptistry of Florence. Ghiberti won, so we'll let him explain. The trial piece that Brunelleschi entered, the sacrifice of Isaac, is shown here. But it only got second. And he was so disappointed that he decided to focus on architecture instead.
So basically, he was a sore loser about it. A couple years after the competition, he discovered linear perspective.
Linear perspective tricks the eyes by making a 2D drawing look 3D, with lines meeting at a vanishing point. The knowledge of this was known in ancient Greece, but it was lost in the Middle Ages. This allowed future artwork to look more realistic.
In 1402, he and his friend Donatello traveled to Rome to study Roman architecture.
The very best friends that anyone could have.
Brunelleschi's most famous architectural work was the dome of the Florence Cathedral, also known as the Duomo.
And there is the dome.
The dome was to be larger than the Pantheons, but it was so big that nobody knew how to build it without having it collapse.
Huh?
What?
Tigger!
To find a solution, the Wool Merchants Guild held a contest.
What is up with all these contests?
I don't know. Ghiberti was in this competition too, but this time, Brunelleschi beat him.
Yeah,
That random other guy.
Who got third? We don't really know who he is.
Yeah, nobody really cares. This time Brunelleschi got his comeuppance.
Comeuppance!
Comeuppance, not Muppets.
And we spelled it wrong, but oh well.
Brunelleschi's plan for the dome was to make 2 layers of material, a lightweight inner shell and a heavier, wind-resistant outer one. He also used rings and ribs of wood to support the inside.
And you can't really see the ribs.
There are the ribs.
Aren't they beautiful?
He put the bricks in a herringbone pattern that directed the weight of the bricks outward rather than into the ground.
Okay, that's enough, Corey. Brunelleschi used more than 4 million bricks to construct the dome. By comparison, the average house requires about 20,000. In order to get materials up to the workers, he invented some new hoisting machines. I mean, no big deal or anything.
It looks like a giant duck.
It definitely is a duck. Good job, Corey.
The Duomo was Brunelleschi's largest commission, but he also designed 2 churches, the Basilica of San Lorenzo and the Santo Spirito.
Okay, so recap. Again.
He invented linear perspective.
He was the principal and also the best architect of Florence.
And the Duomo was his most famous work. So I guess he was kind of awesome.
Not as awesome as Masaccio.
No one can beat Masaccio.
So next up is Ghiberti. Well, he really wasn't that important, but we still think you should know about him.
Ghiberti was born in Pelago in 1378 and was trained in goldsmithing by his dad, Bortoluccio.
Try saying that 10 times fast.
By the time he grew up, he had many different jobs.
Well, here's his resume. He was trained as a sculptor. Nice, Julia.
My bad.
A sculptor, a goldsmith, a draftsman, an architect, a writer, a lifeguard,
What?
a croquet player, and an FBI agent.
Okay, just kidding about the last few.
Okay.
But he was a bronze caster mainly. Ghiberti had 2 loves in his life, doors and bronze.
Ha, what a loser.
Allow me to explain. In 1401, the Woolmakers Guild held a contest to design doors for the baptistry in Florence.
Ghiberti, Brunelleschi, Donatello, and others competed, but they commissioned Ghiberti to do the doors.
The trial piece he entered into the contest was the biblical scene of the sacrifice of Isaac.
Shown here.
Once Ghiberti got the job, he worked and worked and worked.
And twerked. Maybe with
Masaccio. We don't really know. Finally, 21 years later, he completed the doors.
Geez, how long does it take? Their doors, not the Great Wall of China.
Anyway, the doors featured 28 panels, each filled with biblical scenes. The church loved the doors so much.
We love you!
I love you!
We love you, Ghiberti!
Marry me!
That they had him build another set of doors.
They obviously forgot to fax his secretary the deadline because it took him 27 years to complete these. So if it took him 48 years to complete both sets and he lived to 77, then that means he spent over 60% of his life making doors.
What a sad life.
Anyways, the second set of doors was Ghiberti's masterpiece, shown here. And Michelangelo even called them the Gates of Paradise.
Tigger!
Well, the first set of doors that he did, it balances the composition in a quatrefoil shape, which is that shape you see on the right. That one.
Tigger being helpful.
Buffering.
Awkward buffering.
There are the doors.
And both sets focus on elegant and graceful lines, and over time he used more relief height to show depth.
So that's about it, and considering the fact that his main masterpieces were the doors, there's not much else he did, but he did make bronze statues for the Ors and Michel, which is the church.
One of St. John, one of St. Matthew, and one of St. Stephen.
Besides sculpting, he was also a writer, and his book, Commentary,
What is that?
It's a book.
Okay.
contains, fun fact, the earliest known surviving autobiography of any artist.
It's pretty cool.
Okay, so recap. Last time, I promise.
He made 2 sets of doors for the Florence baptistry.
He was mainly a bronze caster.
And his most famous work were the Gates of Paradise. Thanks for watching.
By Corey.
Julia.
And Taryn.
Yeah.
So beautiful.
This has been a CJ2 Ratchet production.
Corey, we're not Kingsley.